Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, brought to you by Cottonworks through Cotton Incorporated. My name is Jennifer Lee, and I'm the Manager of Marketing and Industry Programs here at Cotton Incorporated. We're pleased to connect with everybody today. With hundreds of easily searchable resources, Cottonworks is your go-to textile tool for discovering what's possible with cotton. At Cotton Incorporated, we bring to you a wide range of information through this Cottonworks platform based in science and research. During today's webinar, at any time, you may ask a question using the Q&A feature, and at the end of the webinar, we will be answering those questions for you. A recording of today's webinar will be made available in a few days' time on the Cottonworks website, as well as our Cottonworks YouTube page. Today's speakers are Aubrey Howard, our trend forecaster, and Seth Winner, the technical manager of Wovens at Cotton Incorporated. And here's Aubrey.
Thank you, Jennifer, and hello, everyone. My name is Aubrey Howard, and I am a trend forecaster based in Cotton Incorporated's consumer marketing headquarters in New York City. I am part of a team of forecasters who studies the market for the latest trends in cotton, and we create comprehensive trend presentations and style reports featuring cotton-rich fabrics and silhouettes from all over the world, found during our global travel. So for those of you who haven't seen our trend presentations, at the top left-hand side of the screen, you can see one of the main fabric stories for our three main concepts for 2027. And then the remainder of the images on the screen is what our denim style report looks like that can be found on Cottonworks. We do cover key lifestyle trends for the season, and we see how those trends are influencing color, cotton fabric, silhouette, and design details for the general, active, and denim markets. Now, each presentation does include our in-house Fabricast developments that are created by our product development team, inspirational cotton fabrics and garments, and sourceable mill fabrics, all of which will be highlighted in today's content. Our materials are meant to inspire while showcasing how cotton is being used in the market in classic and innovative ways. And today I will highlight 4 aesthetic directions applicable to the denim market, and we'll dive into the first of those 4 aesthetics with a aesthetic that's called Made and Crafted. Now, this section will speak to cotton denim fabrics with a bit of a one-of-a-kind and handcrafted look to them. We find that people are gravitating towards items that have a bit of a storied look to them, in a sense that it's actually been touched by the human hands as a backlash to our reliance on technology and perfect AI imagery that is flooding our screens. So in fabrics and silhouettes, we are seeing decorative stitchwork motifs on classic denim. I'll highlight the Paul Smith runway that you see at the far left-hand side of the screen that shows this hand-done stitchwork detail that gives a crafted update to a classic pinstripe. Moving to the top center here, this is a Cotton Incorporated product development fabric with stitchwork in this all-over optical pattern on an indigo twill. Now, moving to the bottom of the screen here, this is a really great sample that I actually purchased during research this past October at a show called Denim Days in Amsterdam. And this artist finds vintage Levi's and repairs them with dead stock fabrics using a shishiko technique. And we see this same technique on the right-hand side of the screen on a cotton pant, but this is actually a digital print that's being used to mimic that technique with all over stitchwork. And once I pass the floor over to Seth, he will go into more detail about the shishiko technique. But here we'll see decorative stitchwork continue, but in more modern and contemporary placement applications. The unexpected use of these metallic and brightly colored yarns and patterning kind of adds a bit of playfulness to denim, and you can see that in the runway image on the far left-hand side of the screen. And then at the center here, this is an inspirational digital render of the product development that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. This was created in-house, and it shows how that really nice laser effect in those embroidered patterns kind of come together, strategically placed on a cotton denim maxi skirt. All right, now continuing this notion with lightweight cotton twills and chambrays that can be seen on the left-hand side of the screen. Up at the top, this is a cotton chambray fabric with an all-over stitch work that repeats in these concentric semicircles in a wave-like pattern. And then below that, we have a lightweight twill jacquard that mimics the look of embroidery in a bandana-inspired pattern. I do love seeing how embroidery is being used in the menswear market with the two runway images on the right side of the screen, showing these iterations of decorative embroideries in geometric patterns and floral motifs in head-to-toe styling that really makes a statement on denim. Now focusing on a bit more of a feminine touch with eyelet embroidery that effortlessly elevates denim and lightweight twills. On the left-hand side, you can just see how much range that this has with the casual look on the left and then the dressier Tanya Taylor look on the right. But we're also seeing this in a sportier aesthetic. At the top right-hand side, this is a really great sample that sees a natural denim eyelet fabric update a classic bomber style jacket. All right, and lastly, we'll see these artisanal accents really elevate classic utility styles. We have jeans, shirt jackets, and chore jackets that are updated with embroidered details and floral motifs, delicate crochet accents, and almost this doily-inspired details that almost bring in a bit of an element of nostalgia. Moving to the top right-hand side of the screen, this is a cotton denim carpenter pant that has this really nice panel and seam work that's highlighted with this delicate floral lace patterning. And then below that here, this is a soft take on patchworking on a natural colored chore jacket with these inserts that have a bit of a hand done appearance. And then if you take a look, I kind of rolled up the sleeve so you can see this little lovely like cuff embroidered accent on the sleeve. It almost looks like a little like bit of wheat, but just a very, very nice accent. All right, so moving to the second aesthetic trend, we have been tracking the rise of people seeking the outdoors to escape digital stimulation. And in response to that, we are seeing an increased interest in outdoor activities. We see denim fabrics and silhouettes responding to this by adding insulative properties to denim constructions and seeing more layering pieces being used for added warmth. With a focus on interesting stitch work and quilting details on denim. At the top left, you see this really nice washed down rust colored shade on a cotton denim sleeveless overshirt with a quilted look in various linear patterns. Seeing these more decorative patterns, the next two fabrics I'll highlight are both product development of ours. And the fabric at the bottom left, you see that rust red shade that's used for stitch work in this wavy pattern on a raw denim fabric that was quilted to a cotton chambray fabric. And at the top right, this is 100% cotton mid-weight twill that was quilted to a sinker loop terry. And it was embroidered in a large scale geometric pattern that alternates between lines, lattice, and grids. And we see this fabric in a really nice outerwear digital render. This is a vest that's a really great layering piece that utilizes both the face and the back of the fabric. Now keep an eye out for these two product development fabrics in Seth's portion of the presentation because these developments have a really great story about their filling layer. And then with a focus on these Sherpa linings for added warmth, we have another product development at the top left-hand side of the screen that sees raw cotton denim embroidered to a cotton wool Sherpa in a grid pattern. And below that here, you have this neutral color denim vest with a Sherpa lining. We really like the kind of color selection here. You have that almost antiqued white shade that's very unexpected and offers a more muted look for the fall-winter season. Okay, so the next section is very imaginative, and I'd say it's the most decorative and tactile of all four of the aesthetics that I'll highlight today, and it focuses on these unique hands and looks created on cotton denim through cording. And starting out with another product development fabric that sees a cotton novelty space-dyed chenille yarn applied via a cording device that adds softness to a rigid 100% cotton denim base. You do see a lot of movement in this fabric with the color shifts of the yarn along with the wave patterning. Now, this can be a bit of a busy fabric, so we created 2 digital garments to show how it can be toned down a bit with placement application on a denim jacket at the center of the screen. And if you're bold enough to wear this as an all-over look, I definitely would be. But this is a denim jacket where the fabric has been turned in a certain section, 90 degrees in certain areas, and it kind of breaks up a little bit of that patterning. All right, and still having a haphazard feel, but in a more muted look with tonal color combinations. On the left-hand side, we have a natural cotton twill base, and it has that thicker yarn that's corded on there for added texture. And then we have another product development on the right-hand side that's 100% cotton denim fabric with a corded blue and white novelty yarn. All right, and the last group of this section sees a more uniform take on this aesthetic. The product development at the top left shows a bit more of an artisanal take on a cording-esque inspired fabric. This is a Dobby fabric, and it has a really nice pronounced stripe with an indigo eyelash yarn. And if you look to the right of the screen here, you can see this fabric in a lovely sleeveless women's vest with a tie front. And the silhouette at the bottom of the screen, it's really great. It's 100% cotton, Western-inspired denim top, and it has this really nice tobacco shade and a corded accent, and it was actually inspired by the architectural archways of Jaipur, bringing a bit of a storied accent to a classic denim fabric. All right, and the last group I'll highlight is all about yarn effects and prints that give denim a new look. I'll start out by highlighting how the return to the office is influencing the market and rethinking what traditional office dressing looks like. We see this being translated into denim by using techniques that gives denim a bit more of a tweed-like look. Now, each of these cotton fabrics on the screen are highly textural, some a bit more extreme than others, but you can get this look through needle punching, using a novelty boucle yarn and different laser effects. And we do find that this style has been trending for a couple of seasons now, and we feel like it resonates with so many people because you still have the casualness of denim, but it feels a little bit more elevated as well. And continuing this notion, but seeing it in silhouettes, we have these dressier looks in silhouette form and on the runway in head-to-toe styling. You see a really nice example of menswear and women's wear on the screen. And I'll focus at the silhouette at the top of the screen that has this really classic and edgy take on a cotton denim tweed blazer that blends the elegance of the silhouette with the distressing details and ornate buttons. Jumping to the bottom of the screen, this is a cotton denim jean with an all-over distressed laser effect that was done in garment form. And then the fabric to the right-hand side of that sees this really nice frayed effect in a diamond pattern that adds a bit more of a controlled look to the all-over distressing. All right, now this group is probably one of my favorites, and we're still focusing on distressing, but we'll highlight these really nice ombre effects. So the fabric at the top left here, this is another Cotton Incorporated product development. It has a boucle look from needle punching, and it has that added layer of interest with that ombre color effect that goes from dark to light. You can see this fabric in a really great digital garment and overalls in this striped top silhouette. I love the barrel leg. I love the mixing of the ombre with the striped knit. 10 out of 10 would wear this outfit. And then down at the bottom here, this is a textural take on an ombre effect that sees this gradient laser distressing pattern on 100% cotton denim jean, kind of being super extreme at the top and then lightening up as you go down the leg. All right, in our last group, we'll focus on how denim is inspiring non-denim fabrics. We are seeing these lightweight fabrics being printed in these interesting effects that mimic the look of denim. We'll look at this runway look from Chanel on the left-hand side of the screen, still having that really nice ombre effect. But here you see it in this almost faded denim look that goes down to this white sheer fabric. And then to the right of that, you have this really great macro detail of a seam and waistband of a traditional denim jean that was digitally printed on a dressier women's silhouette. Moving to the fabric at the far right-hand side of the screen, this is 100% cotton right-hand twill fabric that was digitally printed to mimic the look of an indigo left-hand twill. And we see this fabric in a digital garment at the center of the screen in a sleeveless vest silhouette. We do have a lot of vest silhouette in here, so I see something trending. And then lastly here, we'll see how this idea is influencing cotton knitwear with these really interesting trompe l'oeil effects used to trick the eye. Both fabrics on the screen are in-house developments, and they are 100% cotton flat knits that look highly textural and dimensional. The fabric at the top is a 3D cable knit using indigo-inspired yarns to mimic a garment wash effect. And then we see that in a turtleneck silhouette digital on the left-hand side of the screen. And then down at the bottom here, we see a traditional woven denim jacket inspired design translated to a double knit jacquard. And we see that same idea translated into a knit pant by PH5 at the right-hand side of the screen. So that wraps up my portion of the webinar. Now I'll pass it over to my colleague, Seth, who will take you through innovations in denim embroidery. And again, keep an eye out for some of those in-house developments that I mentioned, because Seth will give you some really interesting technical details about them. Take it away, Seth.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Seth Winter. I'm Technical Manager of Wovens here at Cotton Incorporated. I'm here in the Cary World Headquarters. Oops. Where in the Cary headquarters, we have about 120 employees and 125,000 square feet of development space, mostly for R&D, and also have their marketing and admin here. I'd like to say we go from dirt to shirt here. We have researchers that do everything from agricultural science all the way through to finishing and testing of the fabric. And as you can see here for our Cotton Incorporated Research Center, which is where I work in the research building, we have everything we need to take a bale of cotton in one end of the building and send it out as samples. And so we have a fiber processing group that can turn your cotton into yarn. And then in our group in the product development, we have knitting and weaving. And then we can finish through dyeing, printing, tenor frames, all the dyeing equipment that we need, garment processing for your wash down finishes, and then finally our testing lab so that we can really see how things work after we've done all the development. Come on. There we go. So one of the things we brought into the Cotton Incorporated lab and product development about 8 years ago was embroidery capability. Initially, we brought it in to look into e-textiles because it is very good at laying in continuous lines of conductive fibers. But kind of as we began to work with it, we discovered that it was really well suited to just doing really fascinating and beautiful patterning on the textiles. I'm going to give you kind of a quick overview of how embroidery works. Mechanical embroidery, machine embroidery, has really only been around since about the mid 1850s. So it's kind of a newish technology, kind of right in there with the Industrial Revolution, where they started automating all these processes. It's an additive process, and what that means is you don't really build anything with it, although we'll show some examples later on where we have made textiles using embroidery techniques. It's a lock stitch, so it's, as you can see by that kind of animation there on the middle top, you can see that it's doing a stitch that is doing the same thing on the top and bottom, same as your sewing machine. So it's a continuous lock stitch. And so what you're creating on the face is mirrored on the back, but never quite exactly, but you can do some work with that to create some interesting effects. Our Our machine has 24 needles, but there are machines out there with one. And it can go from anywhere from roll to roll to small monograms to put your initials onto your shirts. But what we have is a ZSK machine. It's got a 700 by 700 millimeter bed, as you can see there on the right. And the one thing that I kind of want to draw your attention to is the way that bed moves, or the pantograph, is the way that you're controlling the way that the embroidery is being put into the fabric itself. So what you're doing when you program for embroidery is you're telling that pantograph how far to move in tenths of millimeter in the X and Y direction before it makes the next stitch. And that's how you begin to build the imagery and the patterning that's coming from that process. You build on top of the stitches that are below, so you can actually do some blending and constructing over the top of the previous embroidered structures. So there's a broad range of capability. And I have to say, as a weave designer, it was quite a feat to really wrap my head around this really pretty different way of designing, but it's really quite like designing for a digital plotter, because you're actually creating lines that follow through and build one on top of the other. And as you see on the bottom right of this image, that is kind of the digital file that you create to send to the embroidery machine. So with the instructions, and you look real close at the bottom right there, you can see that each line is really just a number that's either a certain amount up or down and left and right. And the only other thing that you can tell the machine to do is to stop, change needles, or to cut. So going backwards in time, and hand embroidery, there are samples that have been found that date back to 30,000 BC. That archaeologists found a sample in Kiev and the Ukraine back in the 60s. But some of the more modern things were happening simultaneously, almost, where in England they were doing a lot of hand embroidery in the 13 to 1500s during the Tudor period. Certainly, if you look at the bio tapestries that kind of describe history, a lot of hand stitching embroidery. Egyptians were doing embroidery, so that dates back as well as the Chinese in the fifth to the third BC. But what really kind of strikes us is what was going on in Japan during the Edo period, when sashiko was coming into its own. And sashiko is kind of a really beautiful thing that fits really well with denim, because it is very much based around that indigo tradition. And then there's just a broad range of geometric design possibilities. And there's some deeper names for a lot of these that they're not, I don't know them well, but I love the aesthetic of it. If you look at what's going on, a lot of this was repair. This was taking old pieces of fabric and continuing their life. And so this was really about recycling, reusing, repairing, and making things last longer, but doing it in a very beautiful way. So what you see in the background here is actually a child's blanket that has been kind of fashioned out of various pieces of found textiles to create a insulative structure for sleeping. There are also very actually meticulously made firefighters' jackets that they would create quilted structures to wet themselves down before going in to fight the fires. So there was a very functional aspect of it as well. But for us, what we're really inspired by on the denim side are these geometric structures that really are just beautiful, kind of both constructive and aesthetic explorations. So these are some things that we did here in Cotton Incorporated. And I will say, if you would like any of these samples that you see, the number on the top left of every image is a kind of the key that you could provide to your account manager should you want a sample of these, or go on to Cottonworks, and these are also requestable. And these are coming out of our fabric cast collections, where we do about 100 fabrics a year out of product development to kind of inspire and show new things. So The one you're seeing on the left is a 6 ounce chambray, and there's three colors of thread on the face there, and this really kind of broken up geometric pattern going into both diagonal and horizontal. And the one thing that I really enjoyed when doing this is there were some kind of artifacts that came out of the translation going from Illustrator to the embroidery software, where you get these lines that don't follow a straight line. And at first I was disappointed, but then found that to be something that was a kind of a nice addition. On the right is a continuous line of double stitch of white on a indigo fabric. It's actually a two by one twill with an indigo warp and black filling. And then here, kind of thinking about how that stitching in sashiko was used as a way to repair. We looked at some of denim techniques such as lasering to kind of knock back and very specifically destroy the fabric and then come back and repair it with the embroidery. So on the left, what we have is a drill effect and laser on a 18-ounce denim from Kuroki, and then came back and stitched in this zigzag on top to reinforce and give it a more of an effect. And then on the right, we did this kind of starburst laser effect on the surface of this cone denim, 8-ounce denim. And with a washdown effect, really kind of breaks it down, softens the hand, and then coming back with the embroidery to reinforce it. And the one thing that I really enjoyed about this is how everything is offset and makes it more of a dynamic kind of relationship between the laser and the embroidery itself. And here, these are not embroidery, but these embroidery inspired. So these are two jacquards that we did using 5-shaft satins and both warp face and filling face, and really took that imagery of that sashiko effect and then built that into the pattern itself. And then here, kind of continuing on with that idea, on the left is a laser etch into a navy 3x1 twill, and we're lasering with nano lasers those holes into the surface to give it that kind of very structured pattern effect. And then on the right, as Aubrey showed in the kind of the great overalls earlier, this is a denim that has actually been needle punched, and we're needle punching it from the face, so we're pulling the filling yarn to the face, and then so that's creating this boucle effect. And then after we've done that, we're taking that whole panel and then dipping it in bleach to give it that ombre bleach effect. And again, here in the flat knit, I'm still playing in that world of denim, but here and with the trompe l'oeil effect on the left, we actually literally scanned in a denim jacket and then kind of converted that over into the knit structures to create those different colors. The interesting thing in here is that the lighter blue yarn in there is actually a recycled denim yarn that we had developed in fiber processing. And on the right is a black and white flat knit pattern, really small scale pattern that we've then digitally printed on one face. So if you were actually to flip this over, it would still just be black and white, but on the face of this pattern is this kind of multicolor effect, and I think really plays well with the colors of the denim jacket effect and the trompe l'oeil. And here the cording effect. And what you're doing with cording is you're actually stitching on top of a yarn to attach it to the surface of the fabric itself. So on the left, we've actually made this yarn in-house. This is on our Agtex yarn plying machine, and it's 3 yarns, 2 blues and 1 white, and with a variable twist level. So occasionally the twist level on the yarn gets very, very tight, and then it loosens up to a more normal. So it gives it that kind of changing modeled effect. And then we did a wash down with a Tonella no stone wash to knock down the color on the surface and really kind of give it that worn look. And then on the right, we found this wonderful space dye chenille yarn that we embroidered onto the surface of a denim with a wavy pattern. And I think it just creates this kind of nice waterfall effect of color that goes through the fabric, and a nice hand too. And then here, you spoke earlier about doing embroidery without fabric. So here we embroidered onto a PVA dissolvable substrate. So what we have here is nothing but embroidery yarn. And the one thing I think I haven't mentioned yet, that all the yarn that we're using for embroidery in all of these constructions is 100% cotton. So everything you're seeing here so far has been 100% cotton, including the embroidery thread. So these, you wash them in hot water and then they turn into just a fabric. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a non-woven, and this kind of goes to the quilting thing that Aubrey was talking about earlier. We wanted to have an answer to the polyester fiber fill, the microfibers, and so what we did is we took recycled denim and recycled t-shirts and ground them up back into the fiber form, and then needle punched them into a singular kind of non-woven material. It's a 300 GSM needle punched, and it's very readily available materials, a very simple process to create this insulative structure that can go into your quilted structures, as you'll see here. The first thing that we really wanted to explore was how do we do this in the realm of denim. So on the left, we have a 8-ounce denim on the face, and on the back is a 5-ounce chambray. So chambray being plain weave with the indigo warp and white filling, and then just the wavy pattern, and then the recycled non-woven in between. And on the right, kind of harkening back to the old Sherpa trucker jackets, this is a cotton wool Sherpa, and on the back face with the 8-ounce denim on the other side. And the thing that we found through testing is these actually perform installatively very similar to the polyester fiber fill, but the weight can be a little bit more robust. Whereas I think the one on the left is almost 30 ounces per square yard. I'm sorry, the one on the right is almost 30 ounces per square yard. The one on the left is 25 ounces per square yard. So a little hefty, but it'll feel really good when you're wearing it. And then also here we have a plain weave on the left on both sides of the fabric, dyed different colors. And the one thing that we did on both of these fabrics on this page is we have a different color on the face and the back of the fabric for the embroidery yarn. So you can actually really play a lot with both sides of the fabric when you're working on these structures. So on the right, we have a Glen plaid on the face with a cotton wool herringbone on the back side. And on the left, and then on the left, that is just a 100% cotton. And both of these are using that 75%, 25% recycled denim, recycled t-shirt material. And then finally, this last one is using both knits and wovens in the same textile. So on the one side, we have a 3x1 twill. On the other side is a knit terry. And then we did a wash down effect. We dyed it and then washed it down to break it down the hand with an enzyme scour. And that's all I have for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Seth and Aubrey, for your presentation today. And at this time, I'd like to remind you that our Q&A is open. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. We do have a couple questions coming in now. My first question that I see coming in is, where can people find some of these fabrics? Aubrey, do you want to take that?
Yeah, you can find a lot of the fabrics that we have in our style reports on Cottonworks. We do have style reports for the general market, one for active and for denim, and they have so many fabrics, so many silhouettes, product development, sourceable options. You can actually click on the images of the fabrics and it'll take you directly to the mill's website, or contact information. And if there's any product developments that you see that you like, you can click on that and it will take you to where you can find it on Cottonworks in the materials library.
Great, thank you so much. Now, Seth, a question about the recycled cotton fill. Do you guys know how that performs in comparison to like polyfill?
It's the heating, the insulative quality when we tested it for clove values was actually almost exactly similar. Like I said earlier, I think the only difference between the two is really going to be in weight, whereas the insulative value is going to be actually pretty much the same.
Great, thank you so much. And so some more questions about the cotton embroidery threads that you've used in your quilting. How do those hold up compared to other types of thread?
They do great. And we're getting them. If you get the samples from them, you'll see that they're coming from Gunnelled. I believe they're using Egyptian long staple cotton, so really high quality threads. The one thing that we learned the hard way is that sometimes when you get pre-wound bobbins of it, it's a different thread that may not be quite as resilient, and it might fall apart when you do an enzyme scour. We overcame that by using the top thread and wound that onto bobbins for the bottom threads.
That very informative. Thank you. And we have another question about the using the different ounces of denim together in one product. How does that perform thickness wise?
Um, I don't have the thickness measurements. I know that when we put them in the machine, there was the machine didn't care. So you really have a wide range of ability to do different thicknesses of fabrics. I know the machine that we have from ZSK, the person that we work with on it sometimes will do leather with the same machine, so it can do quite a bit.
Wow, yeah, thank you so much. And so thank you both Seth and Aubrey for sharing with us today all the work you put into creating this trend for us. I just want to remind everyone that a recording of this webinar will be available on the Cottonworks website as well as the Cottonworks YouTube page in a couple of days. We hope that you will check it out there as well as share it with your colleagues. We thank you for joining us today and we hope to see you at another Cottonworks event soon.